And it's day one, and you walking in there on the first day, man, you in there, man. But you feel something. It's right in here, man. And it's screaming, and it's yelling, and it's saying, release me. And it's saying, I am the number one determinant of the success or failure of my students. Hey, y'all, when you get back, kick some butt, and I'll see you in the winner's circle celebrating your victory. Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! You got this! You got this! You got this! Thank you, everybody.
And we are live. Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to week 193 of the AP and New Principals Academy. Let me see who we got here in the building. We got, oh man, we got a lot of y'all in here. We got Mona Abamolak, and she always says good morning to the queen first. And then to myself, I appreciate that. We got Takesha High in the building, Marsha Poe out there in San Diego. We got Rodney Richardson, Grace Castaneda is in the building, James Beasley Mungan is in the building, Chris Wagaman is in the building, Leslie Snyder, Principal Otis Kitchen II is in the building, Stacy Ann Barrett. Dr. Rella Hicks, man, I got to meet Dr. Rella Hicks the other day in Augusta, Georgia. It's always nice to meet the fam in person. So good to see you, Doc. We got Michael Benton in the building, Alicia Jeffers, Elena, I'm trying, y'all, Simonsma. I know I messed that up, Elena. I know I did. I'm sorry. We got Jacqueline Harriet up there in Nova Scotia holding it down. We got Megan Lefevers in the building. She's going to be on with me next week. We got Milken all week, man. She'll be with me next week along with about 3 others. We got John Herrick's Principal Sherrod L. Law is in the building. He said, Harambe. Harambe. Some of y'all don't know what that means, man. We'll tell you another time. I ain't got time right now. And he said, Hotep. There's the queen. I've been missing her for like 2 weeks, man. But the queen, Kimberly Broughton Kafele, is in the building, or should I say, in my castle. She told me to hold it right there. I ain't going to tell you what that means. In my castle. Private joke, y'all. I'm acting silly. It's too early to be acting silly, man. Let me get serious. We got Dr. Sheikah Houston. Guest last week, Create and Educate, along with Dr. Tammy Taylor, 10:30 every Saturday. Fantastic Four, Sean Hurd at 10 o'clock. And then myself at 11, 10:55 to be exact. And then Josh Tovar, Dean Packard, Sunday nights at 7 o'clock Eastern time. Facebook Live, all of these. My man, Lou Saunders is in the building. Lakeisha Mabry is in the building. Lysandra Brackens, Yolanda McKinney is holding it down. We got Central Hicks, Edwin Garcia, Ronald Pugh, Stacy L. Joy, Lucretia Harris is in the building. Principal Dot McKeever Jeter is here. Principal Tammy Taylor, Valerie Kelly, September Devon Vance Daniels is in the building. I'm getting ready to get it started, y'all. With Lily Lanier, Donna. Every time I say your name, Donna, I'm like, I'm used to Donna Sherrigan. I always miss it. Donna Medina. Shara Gantz in the building, Jasmine Harris, Dr. Demetrius Scott. I'm getting ready to close it. Let me just see if I see any of your local homies here. I don't see no local homies. I do see Dr. Nardis King. No, I got to shout Dr. Nardis King out, man. She's a past president of the National Alliance of Black School Educators. I've known her for many years. I knew her when she's a baby in this business. Now president of the National Alliance of Black School Educators, NABC, man, doing big things. I'm gonna close it with this one right here. Kiana Marks, man. This is one of my mentees, man, out there in Cincinnati area. And good to see you, Kiana. I'll see you next week, and I'm looking forward to it, man. I'll be at that. I'm gonna be talking to the parents at night too, y'all. Right. So anybody in the Mount Healthy area of Cincinnati, come on out and join me. I'll be out there on the 9th at I don't know what time. I think it's like 5 or 6, something like that. It's a flyer. Go on the website. Other than that, y'all, I'm gonna cut it off right there because I'll see the local homies and then I'll start calling out names. So let me just stop it right there, and let me formally greet everybody by saying to you, good morning, greetings, welcome to week 193 of the AP and New Principals Academy. And let me say to you real quick, I don't know about you, but let me speak for me right quick. I want you to know how I feel. If you haven't sensed it, let me just be intentional and tell you, I'm on fire! Woo! Woo! That's how I'm feeling. Despite whatever's going on in my life, whatever could be going on in the world outside of my life, I'm still going to keep these flames raging. And the reason for that is the work I do, and I'm going to confine the work I do to right now, Saturday morning, 10:55. Y'all tuned in this morning. I can't be coming at y'all like this here. Like, I'm glad y'all are here this morning, man. You know, I'm a little tired, long night, but you know, I'm here. I'm glad you checked in. Man, I can't come at it like that. Just like you can't go to that school, man. It's, you know, things going on in your life. Good morning. All right, Jalil. Morning. I see you. All right, go ahead. Go inside. All right, good. Good morning, Jamila. I see you. Yeah, okay. Hi, morning. Man, you got to bring that energy. Good morning, young people. Good morning, young people. High five them, right? What handshake? If you can, put your arm around their shoulder if you can, right? I mean, whatever it is, but bring that energy, bring that enthusiasm, bring that excitement, bring that passion, bring that determination, bring that fire. It matters. Some of y'all, you tune into this platform every week because you know I'm gonna bring fire. Some of you, because you've told me, some of you said, yo, part of the reason I watch because you inspire me. Some people, I'm like the cup of coffee, right? Because the week was long, the week was arduous, the week was difficult, the week was challenging, and I know Kafele gonna bring them flames. If he don't bring nothing else, he gonna bring them flames, and it's gonna get me right back where I need to be. That matters, y'all. Let's go, man. I got guests today. Let me go through this rundown. Shout out to Pine Hill Middle School, Spring Creek Middle School, Hornsby Middle School in Richmond County, Georgia, Augusta. Man, I had a great time with them staffs, man. Shout out to all of them. Shout out to their leaders. Shout out to everybody on them staff. Shout out to the teacher leaders. Man, we had a good time. Good time. And obviously the staff. Good time. On the flip side, thoughts and prayers to the staff, students, administration of Perry High School and Perry Middle School in Perry, Iowa, where there was yet another school shooting, yet another senseless school shooting. Thoughts and prayers to the family of Amir Joliffe, young man, 11 years old, lost his life to some, I won't use words on this platform. Just somebody that obviously needed some kind of help, right? I won't do that this morning. But thoughts and prayers to Amir and his family. But this is a leadership platform, so I would be remiss if I didn't also reference Principal Dan Marburger, Principal Dan Marburger. I heard that Principal Marburger was heroic in trying to distract the shooter and get kids out of that building, and was subsequently shot. And I'm gonna tell you, I don't know that all of us are built for that. I mean, maybe we are. Who knows? I don't know. No judgment here. But when that principal puts his or her own life on the line for the children, that's leadership, y'all. That's leadership, right? But more than leadership is humanity. That's what it is. The leader could have. You remember what happened in Uvalde with that police officer, which I won't get into, but that's not what this leader did, right? This principal said, I gotta protect my kids, man. I'm the leader of this ship. I can't run and hide in my office. I can't run out the front door, right? I got babies in here. I got my babies. Because see, as a principal, those are your babies. They're yours. They're not the parents in that time. The parents are doing whatever they're doing, working wherever they are. Now they in that building, they are our responsibility. So that leader understood. I hope I get to meet him, and who knows, I may have met him, because I've spoken in Iowa. So, but Principal Dan Marburger, if there's someone out here that knows him, just let them know that I said prayers to him, but also salute to him for being the leader that his children, his babies needed him to be. And his daughter, she's been in the newspaper almost every day, and she said he's coming around. And she said that, matter of fact, she said that this was typical of Dad. She said, no surprises here. This is who Dad is, right? That's who he is, right? So I wanted to make sure that we covered that as well. Let's move on. Welcome to the first timers. But if this is your first time, that means you've missed 192 weeks of what I will call, I don't mean to boast, but I'm just going to call it as I see it, of a great platform for assistant principals, aspiring administrators, new principals, and quite frankly, veteran principals. And I might add all of central office, and I might add inclusive of the superintendent, right? I'll add inclusive of the State Department, so the state commissioner and the Secretary of Education, right? It's just great stuff on here, and that's going to include today. Right. So go to the YouTube channel, AP and New Principals Academy. Hit that subscribe button. Let me say it again. Hit the subscribe button. Let me say it one more time. Hit the subscribe button. We're at 19,900 some odd subscribers, and we're about 50 away from 20,000. So hit that subscribe button so we can hit 20,000 subscribers. That's a big deal to me on a personal level. So hit that button and then binge watch all those vids. And I might add, I added a new component to the channel. I decided to experiment or play around with YouTube Shorts. Those are those little 60-second joints. And I was only planning to do one last week, and I guess I got hooked on it. And I did 5, right? So when you go to the channel, check out the shorts. They're just little 60-second clips where if you don't have time to watch full videos, check out the 60-second clip. Usually it'll be some kind of inspiration. I'm about do about 2 or 3 a week every week. So there'll be a lot of shorts on that channel. Let's go. Be sure to like and follow the AP and New Principals Academy Facebook page. That's important too, because I do a written commentary every Sunday morning, not later than 10 o'clock. So I've done, I don't know what number now, maybe about 112 of them, right? But I write this little short commentary. Actually, it's not that short. It's about 500 words sometimes. But check it out every Sunday morning. Go to the AP and New Principals Academy Facebook page. And then I gotta tell you about this. Is my school a better school because I lead it? The Principal 50, the Aspiring Principal 50, the Assistant Principal Identity, which is my newest book, and the Assistant Principal 50. These are all my administrative books that coincide with this academy. If you don't have any of these 5, man, what are you waiting for? Go to Amazon and just put in my name, Whitehead Kafele, and they'll all pop up. And then get yourself a copy because they coincide with the academy, and you won't go wrong with these books. I learned yesterday these books are selling too, man. I'm going to leave that right there, though. They selling. This book I forget to talk about. And it's an important book. It's probably more important than the other books I just showed you. The Equity and Social Justice Education 50, right? And I specifically wrote this for teachers of African American students. It's subtitled "Critical Questions for Improving Opportunities and Outcomes for Black Students." I wrote this book. I started writing this book as soon as I heard of the murder of George Floyd. I just went right to this computer right here. It's sitting at this very desk and started writing, and hence this book. It's a bestseller, but I want to make sure that you all are aware that this book exists, because a lot of people associate me with the leadership books, but they forget I've got about 5 books for teachers, and that's one of them. All right, y'all, I'm done with all that. I'm ready to go. Let me do my monologue real quick. My monologue is a New Year's talk. This is the first Saturday of the new year, and it was going to be something else until the shooting at Perry High School occurred, which the middle school is attached to. So that's why I say to both. But I want to just say this real quick before I bring up my guest. Emergency preparedness. With all the responsibilities that those of you who are in leadership have, I guess it's possible to be a little lax in emergency preparedness. You know, maybe the thinking, yeah, it's not going to happen here, or I think we're straight. I think we got that down pat. I would say to y'all, I think I would be responsible in saying to each and every person on here right now, you may need to go back and review your plans, and then engage in some of your procedures to make sure that you are where you need to be. You know, I know that there's nothing that can prevent an AR-15. I get that, but there are some things that you can do to minimize or reduce risk, right, of harm to young people and adults in the building. So all I'm saying to you is, if you need to go back and rethink some of your procedures, or if you need to just suspend instruction for a little while and just engage in the process, in the procedures that you have in place to ensure that everybody knows what to do. So the students who are in the hallway going to the restroom, or when classes are changing, and that's when the principal has to call a code red. See, I know you know what to do when everybody's in class, right? But do you know what to do when it's the end of first period, or the lunch period, when all the students are in the hallway, or at least a grade level, as opposed to everyone's in a class? Are we prepared for code red when we got crowded hallways? Are we prepared for a code red when you got a whole grade level in a cafeteria with spilled tomato sauce and applesauce and milk on the tables? Are you prepared for a code red under those circumstances? Are you prepared for a code red when during the PE periods and it's a substitute teacher? So are the substitute teachers prepared for a code red? Would they know what to do? Right? So there's so much that I'm sure as you're listening to me, you may be thinking, wow, I ain't thinking about the lunch period. I didn't think about the substitute teacher. I didn't think about between classes. I know we're good when they're in class, but I didn't think about between classes. Or does the one that uses the restroom, or when you think about a large school, and now you got multiple kids in various different restrooms, do they know what to do? Right? Or if they already came out on their way to the class, do they know what to do? Right? So all those kinds of things, all those kinds of scenarios. Are we prepared? Is the principal prepared? Is the assistant principals prepared? Is the office staff prepared? Is everyone in the building prepared? Is all I'm saying. Right? So that'll be my monologue this morning. Just make sure that your emergency preparedness is airtight, that you know exactly what it is that you need to do to at least reduce the probability that there would be harm for anybody in that school. It matters, y'all. Don't take it lightly. With that said, let me go. I got my guest here, and I'm gonna bring them on up here now without further ado. I got my Milken brothers here. I got Wade Whitehead, and I got Nader Twal, who is Dr. Twal, but he's just waiting for the documentation. So we'll call him Nader for now. But all the work, all the dissertation is behind him. Good morning, brothers. How are you? Go ahead, Wade.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you. It's great to see you.
Great
to see you both.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let me explain, y'all. I made a decision many months ago. I won the Milken Award, and we'll talk more about that award within the next 15 minutes. But I won the Milken Award, received the Milken Award on December 1st, 2009. And it allowed me to learn or get to know a whole lot of folks that I may not have ever gotten to know. in life because of that, because we come together a lot. So I decided, I said, let me just devote January to some of my Milken family, right? So I couldn't get them all because it's like, what, 3,000? Is that the number, or 2,000? One of them.
It's close to 3,000, yeah.
Yeah, it's close to 3,000. So I can't get them all, but you know, I got a few this month, and I'm proud of that. And that's what we're gonna be doing this month, because you know, if you got the Milken Award, if you received the Milken, I mean, you're doing a lot of things right. So I wanted to bring my Milken family on. So hence here we are. So we're going to talk about Milken in a little while, but first I want to share these bios. Now, Wade's bio is interesting. I read Wade's bio unbeknownst to him over the summer, and I said, and I've known him for years, since I won the Milken back in 2009. But I never read his bio until this past summer, years later. And I went to him. I'm like, let me use this word on here, y'all. I was like, damn, right? It's like I didn't know he had done all these things. So he sent me, and then at the Milken Forum last summer at UCLA in LA, I went on and broke protocol and said, can I tell the people about Wade's background? You know, so he sent me a condensed version of just bullet points, because it would take a couple days to read his bio. So let me just let me share this with you. 4th generation teacher, currently in his 30th year, teaching 5th graders at Crystal Spring Elementary School in Roanoke, Virginia public schools. Now I might add, it's his 30th year, but it's the same classroom, right? This man, you're gonna hear this bio, but this man hasn't stepped out of that room in 30 years, right? So that's where he's at. Spring undergraduate degrees in anthropology and elementary education from the College of William and Mary, master's degree in education leadership from University of Virginia, certification in school management and leadership from Harvard University, certified as a school administrator and in gifted education, national board certified teacher since 1999, Milken Educator Award 2000, McLaughlin Award for Teaching Excellence 2002, Virginia Lottery Excellence in Education and Super Teacher Award, National Teachers Hall of Fame 2016, Executive Director, Teachers of Promise Institute 2000, established in 2004, and we're going to get into that. Founder and President, 501c3, Teachers of Promise Foundation, established 2010. Director, Reynolds Center for Teaching and Learning and Creativity. CEO, Causing Thinking Consultancy, providing keynotes, workshops, and professional learning experiences for schools, nonprofits, and corporations. Toyota, Lexus, Pfizer, Exact Sciences, Fable Vision Learning, PBS, and Apple. Jazz musician, formerly performed and recorded with the Jiving Five, the Stardusters, and Sway Cats. And there's so much more, y'all. There's so much more. He doesn't even have his international teaching on here. So that's, you know, there's so much more. But the context is this, y'all. Everything I just read, this man has been in this one classroom for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
Despite all of what I just read. One classroom he reports to, right? We're going to talk about why that is in a little while. Let me get to my good brother here, Nader Twal. Nader serves as program administrator in the office of the deputy superintendent in Long Beach Unified School District, the LBC, 4th largest in California. His work focuses on bringing Vision 2035, a comprehensive and aspirational reimagination of education in Long Beach, co-constructed with the community, to fruition alongside other systems leaders. Having served 9 years as a classroom teacher, 2 years as a site level program coordinator and teacher, 5 years as high school central office linked learning, where we at here, coordinator, and 10 years as program administrator of professional learning and curriculum services. Prior to his current position, Nader brings a unique and comprehensive body of experience to K-12 systems level change management. An experienced and published design thinker, liberatory designer, Milken National Educator, and California Association of Teachers of English Excellence in Teaching awardee, Nader brings the gap between theory and action with a body of work that demonstrates the power of listening first and designing second. Woo! That's a lot, y'all. When Nader Ahmad Twal received his Milken Educator Award in 2003. He was a Bible as literature and philosophy teacher at Millikan High School in Long Beach, California. Along with a team of gifted teachers, he wrote a curriculum entitled Literacy Workshop for Struggling Readers, which was adopted by the district as the standard curriculum for the course. He also played a key role in creating the Peace Academy, personal success through empowerment, academic achievement, conflict resolution, and ethics in action, a small learning community, secondary specialized program for international studies that provides college-bound, community-minded students for competition in a culturally diverse global economy. Finally, Nader completed his doctorate in educational leadership at San Diego State University in December 2023. That was yesterday, y'all. Focusing his dissertation on the potential of liberatory design to build the transformative leadership capacity of central office administrators. He also serves on the board of serves as a board trustee for Learning Forward, an international professional association devoted exclusively to establishing and sustaining highly effective professional development for educators. It's a lot there, y'all. I got two powerhouses on here. They're Milken brothers, they family, y'all. Let's jump into it. Hey, y'all, hit that share button, hit that retweet, hit that repost, whatever platform you're watching on, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, hit whatever allows others to see it. Hit the like button to just activate the algorithms. Even if you don't like it anyway, right? Hit that like button and just let them know so that we can make sure that people that need to be on today, that they're here. Before we get to the topic, I just want to ask them a few questions. Wade, let's start with you. You've been in the classroom for 30 years. That's a long time. Let's go back into time. Why teaching? I know you're fourth generation, but there still had to be something to say, I want to do this. So why teaching as a career? And let us know if you could have envisioned being in the classroom this long when you started out.
Well, I'm a fourth generation Virginia public school teacher, but that's not why I'm a Virginia public school teacher. And my son, Jack, actually is in his second year as a high school physics and engineering teacher. So we've got this train rolling. My brother's a middle school teacher as well. His wife is a teacher. My sister-in-law, Virginia Pratt, who's probably on the broadcast right now, an amazing national board certified teacher in South Carolina. But that's not why I'm a classroom teacher. I think for me, when I was a kid and I was thinking about what do I want to do for the rest of my life, I mean, I was interested in astronomy and space, and I was interested in magic tricks, and I was interested in studying the past and digging in the ground. And I love to play. I love to pull numbers apart and put them together. Love to pull words apart, put them together. I like games. I like technology. I like music. And so as I moved toward working life, I started thinking, where's a place where I could do all of that, all of those things, and art and learning? Where's a place I could do all those things every day? And I figured out it would be in a classroom. And I get to do all those things every day. And I also get to be around kids and learners. And I get to be around people who are in a good mood and people who want to be happy, people who want to be successful. I mean, I know there are plenty of exceptions and roadblocks and obstacles to this, but I think at the core of human dignity is a desire to be something, desire to be heard, to have voice, and to have choice. And as I started to ask bigger questions, I guess later, I mean, questions about, maybe we'll get into this in a minute, but questions about what does it take for our nation to have a vibrant democracy and an informed electorate. I eventually just asked the question, if not me, then who? And I tried to answer that question by going into classroom teaching, making many, many mistakes along the way, but always trying not to leave anything on the table, trying to do my best work, trying to find people who are doing their best work. As far as what I could have seen or projected out, I mean, I'm fascinated by leadership, school leadership, and how that impacts teaching and learning. But it's only because I believe teaching and learning are the most important functions in the schoolhouse. I want to know, how does teaching cause learning, and how does learning cause teaching? Those are two separate questions for me. And I thought, well, I'll stick around until I figure out the answers to those two questions. How does teaching cause learning? How does learning cause teaching? And 30 years later, I guess I'm still at digging into those two questions.
A fam out there on the other side of the camera, y'all heard that last part he just said? How does teaching cause learning? But he threw that he spun it. How does learning cause teaching? I've never heard that, and it seems like it should be common sense that if we say how does teaching cause learning, that we should flip it. But I've never flipped that, right? It's how does learning cause teaching? I guess in worded differently, but I never just took the words and inverted them, and there it is. Hey y'all, let me throw the question at you. When you think about what you do in your leadership capacities at your school, let's throw the question that Wade just said. How does learning in your classrooms cause teaching? Whew! I gotta add that one to my repertoire, Wade. How does learning cause teaching? That's adjustment. That's adaptation. Let me stop because I'll turn this whole platform into just that, right? So let me move on. Before I get to you, Nader, I got a follow up for you, Wade. 30 years. What's if you could narrow it down to one thing? What's that thing that keeps you coming back to the same place for 30 years, given all your credentials?
I'm going to tell you something that happened 1 year ago today. I believe January 6th last year was a Friday. And we've been back at school. We went back to school last year on January the 4th. I had a student in my classroom who had come into my classroom after the year began. He'd already been in 2 other elementary schools in his 5th grade year. I think he'd changed schools 12 or 13 times as an elementary schooler between 8 or 9 different schools. And Friday, January 6th, 2023, I was waiting in the hallway, waiting on my students to walk in, especially waiting on him to walk in. Because when he walked in, he rounded the corner, we made eye contact, and I said, "Good morning." He said, "Good morning." And I said, "And happy birthday." And he stopped and looked at me, and I said, "Happy 11th birthday." And he looked at me and he said, "Today's not my birthday." I said, "Today's Friday, January 6th. Today's your 11th birthday." He said, "Wait, today's January 6th?" I said, "Yeah, today's January 6th. And he went, "It is my birthday."
Mm.
It's my birthday. Not one person in his life up to that point had said, "Your birthday's coming up Friday.
Mm.
Let's have a special family dinner. What would you like to eat?" Nobody said, "Let's have the neighbors over. Let's have some people over from church. Let's get some family over here. Do you want your cousins to spend the night?" Let alone that morning say happy birthday before he climbed on the school bus to come to my classroom. And so when I think about why am I still there? What am I still trying to do there? There are lots of big questions to be asked. But for me, when you ask that question, that is what comes to mind.
Yeah. That's
So that someone like me, and there are millions of me across this nation and millions more around the world, and many, many people who support those like me, who want for children to be seen, heard. We want them to have voice, choice. We want them to be someone. You know, this is not about preparing that student or others for some far off adventure. This is the adventure. This is his life. That was his birthday. And so to be in that spot, I feel is not just an obligation, but an honor and a privilege.
Wow. It's powerful stuff. Appreciate you sharing that too. Hey, Nader, you know, as I said, reading the bio less than a month ago,
Mm-hmm.
you've been working hard.
Mm-hmm.
That's hard work. I've never done it, and I kind of flirt with the thought that maybe when I settle down and I'm not doing this like I'm doing it, I'll go ahead and be an old man with working toward a doctorate, right? But it won't be anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
But here you are, you earned it. You'll wear that title soon. But you taught the 9 years. You served in education in various different capacities over 27 years. So a good portion of your life has been in education. My question to you, similar to Wade, why education, and what is it about education that you decided that this is what I want to devote my life to professionally?
So it's interesting that you asked that, because as I was listening to Wade, I kept thinking about the fact that for me, it was not just a moment, but it continues to deepen. So my why grows and deepens with each experience that I have and with each year that I spend in the profession that I think is the most important in the world. I mean, it's the profession that educates all others. But when I think fundamentally about why, and I go back to when I decided I was going to be a teacher, I think it's really grounded in how I was raised. I was born in America. My parents are immigrants from Jordan. But at the age of 2, we moved back to the Middle East, to a country that is not Jordan, that is we'll just say maybe decades back in terms of rights. And my mother did not have rights. I went to a Western school there because my parents wanted me to have a more open education, but my mother was not allowed to get an education. And so she was determined to get a college education. So she found a university in America that back in the 70s was willing to do correspondence courses, distance learning, in the days when you used to have to mail them in boxes. So for years, I watched my mother mail boxes to America and have boxes mailed back to her with homework, with reading, with things that she would devote herself to, because she was not going to be told by any government or by any culture that she didn't have a right to an education, because she knew that education was the key to liberation. And so from a very, very, very deep and early modeling that may have not been overt, it's been beaten into our heads that education is the key lever for justice and the key lever for movement of any culture. So when we re-immigrated back to America, I always had in my head that the doctorate was kind of the goal, right? So our parents wouldn't ask us, where are you going to college? Their question to us was, well, what is your doctorate going to be in? And so for us, college was a stop on the way. And so when I went to college, in my mind, I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer. Those are kind of like the 3 biggies in the Middle East, right? That's how you bring pride to the family. And so I went to college and I was like, I'm going to be a sensory physiologist. I'm going to go to UW and I'm going to get all these amazing degrees and I'm going to write, and 3 people are going to read the things I write, but they're going to be 3 really important people, right? And so in my head, I had it all worked out that it was going to be this thing. But in the summer of, I think it was 1995, between my junior and senior year in college, I did a 9-week immersive experience through a church organization called City Team Ministries. And their philosophy was, you don't know a need until you live a need. They didn't believe in the savior approach where you kind of ride in on your horse into community and then you leave when you're done and look at all the great stuff you've done. Their belief was that until you integrate yourself into the community and begin to live alongside the community you're serving, you really can't understand their need. And so for 9 weeks, we taught summer school and lived in a community with the students that we served. And it transformed my life. And I realized that the way that I was viewing education was very different than what I think my mother had intended for my soul to absorb, which is that it's not just about the degrees that I pursue, but it's about the lives that I affect. And that living a life of eternal worth happens when you make the investment now, not when you wait to make the investment. And so that summer I completely flipped. I finished my degree. I got a sensory, or what do you call it, a biopsych degree. But my teaching credentials in English, I started taking a whole bunch of English courses so I could go get my teaching credential. And each year that I show up, and every year that I teach, and every year that I teach teachers, and every year that I teach central office administrators, my why grows, and my conviction, deep conviction, that the only way that you're going to sustain a meaningful democracy is through an educated electorate, as Wade was saying earlier, that when you look at the most oppressed countries in the world, education is often what's withheld. When you look at how you begin to unlock and open opportunity, it begins with the education of women. It's super interesting to watch how it pans out internationally and even in our own history. who had access to literacy, who had access to school. What does that mean then for you in terms of voting? So I want to be a part of that solution and that legacy, stand on the shoulders of the greats before me, but also honor the sacrifice of my mother and the example that she provided.
It's powerful stuff.
Mhm.
Powerful stuff. You know, Nader, if you took out your crystal ball,
Mhm.
you think about what you've done over the past 27 years, and now here you are stepping into this title of doctor.
Mhm.
10 years from now,
Mhm.
where do you see yourself? Who do you see yourself as it relates to education?
This is probably not going to be the answer that you expect, but I want to be my mother's son 10 years from now. I want my mother and my father, who also made sacrifices, to look at what she did early on, not realizing that the example she set changed the course of my life and who I chose to be. 10 years from now, I want to know that the work that I did in my research, that the lives that I've touched, that the students that I taught, that the colleagues I have experienced something different in my leadership that has caused them to do something different in service to communities that have traditionally been underserved or have been negatively impacted by and I'm going to use the words of Dr. Jarvis Givens, the accumulated neglect of our system. All that little neglect that accumulates over time that becomes a weight that holds people down, where it's invisible to the eye on the daily, but when you look at it over time, you realize, wow, that's something that we got to deconstruct.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping that in 10 years, the things that I've written, the teaching that I've done, the work and the relationships that I've formed help people feel empowered, equipped, and inspired to begin deconstructing those things. I know that's a little abstract, but it's the truth.
No, and you know, I love the reference to this is him right here,
Dr. Jarvis Givens. Yep.
Fugitive Pedagogy.
Yes, sir. It's one of the books I'm reading right now.
Yeah, good stuff. You know, I want to talk Milken real quick, and then I want to go right to our topic. You know, as I said before, it's us being part of the Milken family that has brought us together. And then I had this idea of devoting January to my Milken family. And you know, the Milken Award, just real quick for the folks out there that may have never heard of it, because I do meet people that don't know what it is. But the Milken Award is simply an award that you cannot apply for. They find you, the Milken Family Foundation. They find you, and as a result of the work you're doing, they decide to reward you with a check in the amount of $25,000 in your name. But the way they do it, it's a surprise. You have no idea that it's about to happen. It's at your school. Your students are in the auditorium, or the room, in the audience. The governor is in many cases is there. The commissioner of education in many cases there. The local politicians, the news media, all that, they're there. So just to give you a sense, this is a video that I am most proud of. I just want to show you all when my day came on December 1st, 2009. Take a listen. Take a look, I should say.
There are lots of jobs that people used to do that are now done through technology. And so as the demands of the workforce change, we need to make sure that the education that all of you receive prepare you to be successful in that 21st century workforce.
When I was in public school, and it was a few years ago, I was very fortunate to have many outstanding teachers. They prepared me well to take advantage of life's opportunities. Now, in our nation today, we do so many things well, but one thing we don't do well enough, and that is support our talented teachers. We need to find new and creative ways to offer more powerful career opportunities for educators. We need to make the pay equal to the importance of the job. And we also need to do another thing, and that is we need to celebrate and recognize the good work that our talented teachers do. It gives me great pleasure to present the Milken National Educator Award to a truly exemplary educator, Rudy Kafele.
Principal Kafele cares about these young people, and I see all the hard work that he puts in and how he inspires the educators to do their job.
We have champions all over this city, from the North Ward to the South, East to West, and in the Central. And today we celebrate one of the heroes of our hometown. I give him my thanks. I give him my gratitude. I give him my love. One more thank you to our great principal.
I'm proud to be the principal of this school. It is a blessing to be principal. I am blessed to receive this award. And again, Mr. Milken, I thank you from the bottom of my heart.
All right, as I wipe away my tears, and you know, I wanted to ask you all, when I received that on December 1st, 2009, I had two thoughts came, two actions came. Number one, and this picture captured, I'm so glad somebody got this. That was my reaction, right? I was just thanking God for whatever this is that's happened, because the second portion is I'm asking myself, what the hell just happened, right? It's like, because I've never heard of Milken. So it's like, what just happened in this room? And if you paid attention to me, fam out there, the most of the time you saw me on the video, I'm looking really mad. And I'm looking mad because I see that one of my staff is about to receive an award and no one told the principal about it. So I got angry, and they caught me on video looking angry. So when they announced my name, it went from looking angry to looking very happy, surprised, and then happy. You know, so it was those two things. I want to ask you all, the two of you, real quick before we move on, if you can recall, because I know it's going back a little bit, 2000 and 2003. But when you heard your name, what was your reaction, Wade?
And mine was October 2000. I mean, it was what you just described. But I'm gonna tell you what my understanding has become, and I also want to connect it to the folks that are with us today. For me, that recognition became a tailwind. You know, we educators, we can sometimes feel like we're sitting in a sailboat with no wind, and I want to challenge the school leaders on the broadcast today and those that will catch this later. School leaders are either a headwind or a tailwind. There's really no like agnosticism when it comes to this. If you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice and you're probably a headwind. But if you a pat on the back goes a long way in this profession and in many others. And we can be a tailwind for other people. And for me, that recognition became that. I had sales that I had tried to lift, that others had tried to help me lift. I had other sales I wanted to lift. And this just started blowing air and wind into those and moving me in a direction that I might not have gone otherwise. And looking back on it, I realized that. I realized it was a pat on the back. I was recognized like you were, Baruti, and like you were, Nader, as a representative of excellent educators in this nation, not as the excellent educator. And you got to be a little bit lucky for that to happen to you, honestly.
Yeah.
But you know, good luck is often the combination of preparation and opportunity. And when that opportunity came along, I was prepared for some of it, and I'm so grateful.
I love it. I love it. Nader, same thing. What was your initial reaction?
Well, to be honest with you, right, when Lowell was building up and talking about this person who had like amazing compassion and inspiration, I'm looking around the room like, whoa, I work with this person. And one of my students looked at me and goes, get your speech ready. And I gave him a look like, you better shut your mouth because I don't want to be embarrassed right now. And while I was doing that, he called my name. And I just remember shock washing over me. I froze. and they started pushing me to the front because you got to go up. So I think it was the idea of what just happened and how do I now earn this? And I think that, what Wade said is spot on. Mine was November 5th, 2003. It was 2 years after 9/11, which is also my birthday. I'm Middle Eastern, and there were a lot of feelings. I spent a lot of years after that trying to be invisible, right? Because I just did not want some of the negative attention, I think, that was coming my way. And although there was a lot of love, I was in a lot of ways trying to erase myself. You know what I'm saying? And so in that moment, you can't erase yourself. And so I think there was shock, there was joy, but I think something that Wade has said in the past, my brother has said in the past, that has really stuck with me, which is that it is not a lifetime achievement award. It rewards your infinite potential to contribute to the profession based on early career success and the network that helped you get there. There's not one of us that received the award on our own shoulders. We are standing on the shoulders of many with arms locked, right? Locked with others. And so though we get to be the ambassadors, we don't stand alone.
Yeah.
And so I think it is absolutely incredible to continue every day to earn this award on behalf of my colleagues, alongside the excellence that I'm in the room with, and that, when we leave this room, we continue to be surrounded by. And I would love for this tailwind to become the norm so that we don't need this kind of shot in the arm in order to be celebrated, that we would not be the exception, that we would be the rule.
Wow.
May I jump back in, Principal Kafele? I just want to repeat something Nader said. What just happened and how do I earn this? What just happened and how do I earn this? Let's think about for a second, what would it take for teachers to be asking that question in their own schools because of the actions of their school leaders and those around them? But what can we be doing in our own school buildings for teachers to be feeling the question, what just happened and how do I rise to this? But more importantly, how do we get students asking that question? What would it look like if kids in a classroom were going, wait a minute, what just happened?
Yeah.
Like, how do I live into this?
Yeah.
How do I become a part of what is happening right now? And I don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
And so that to me is the most powerful potential, is that we ask that question, therefore others ask that question. And ultimately, our learners, their families, and our communities ask that question.
It's interesting you say that, because as a teacher, and a lot of people, they criticize when you're giving so many different awards out for different things, right? But based on the population of students I had, I said they're not receiving awards from anywhere. I said, let me create a situation, let me create certain criteria that all you've got to do is meet this criteria, but this is equitable criteria. This is not equal criteria. This is based on where you are. Let me figure what that is with each individual, and award them on what I call Awards Day every Monday morning as we launched the week. And it's like I was given these mini Milken Awards, and I hadn't thought about it that way until you said what you just said, Wade. And so many children, all of them, were receiving awards in different categories because they're all great at something, but it's just a matter of, do we acknowledge it or do we take it for granted, right? So that's, good stuff. Let's jump in here. Hey, folks out there, I know it took a while to get to the main thing, but stay with me, man. We stay on this thing until we done, right? Or do a part 2 later on. But here's the thing, y'all. Wade is currently a teacher. Nader is an administrator, and you know what I do. We're all putting on our teacher hats today. This is my teacher hat, and I want to talk about some things that maybe a teacher in his or her school may not be comfortable in engaging in conversation with administration in terms of initiating. So things that a teacher could be thinking, and I'd love to have a conversation with the principal about it, or an assistant principal, but I just don't feel comfortable in this conversation if I have to be the one to initiate it. So they came up with some talking points. I did as well, but I'm gonna save mine for last if we have time. So let me put the first one on the screen, which is actually a two-parter. that coming from Wade. Wade said school leaders must be aware of two pervasive lies in the teaching profession. Number one, that every meaningful learning experience can be communicated as a number. And I can add a word to that, ouch, right? Wade, what are you saying here? Just stay with number one. I'm gonna get to number two separately.
I'm saying that not everything that can be counted matters, and that not everything that matters can be counted. I'm saying that the cornerstones of my classroom and of many others aren't textbooks or websites or curricula or tests. That the cornerstones of my classroom are climate and culture, a culture of gratitude and generosity, I hope. And that this is built on two promises that I make to my students on the first day of every school year. Number one, I will never raise my voice at you for any reason. And number two, I will never feel or display anger toward you for any reason. Those two things aren't going to happen. Because learning isn't caused by a scope and sequence document. Learning moves at the speed of trust. And we must never forget that the work of the child is actually play. And I lament the loss of play in elementary school. Play improves cognitive, social, physical, creative, emotional well-beings. It reduces stress. And so by always trying to count everything, by the constant emphasis on data walls, data reports, we forget that there are a lot of things that matter that cannot be counted. And there are a lot of things that can be counted that do not matter.
So let me ask you this question. I'm that teacher in a given school. And I agree with everything you said. And I'm leadership, right? And I'm sure everybody on this thread agrees as well. But I'm in a school where there's pressure, as you said, data walls, etc. There's pressure to elevate achievement scores. How do I go to the leader to make the leader understand or bring the leader back to where he or she once was as a teacher? To see, it's easy to forget those days now that we're in these administrative capacities. How do I even approach a teacher to remind teacher that there are other things that matter that cannot be measured numerically?
Well, this isn't one or the other, right? I mean, we are held to accreditation standards. We're held to accountability standards. So there's a way to do all of these things. I just feel that so often one crowds out the other, and we can have both of these conversations. And so I feel that that's the approach. The approach is a +1, right? An and one. Let's walk and chew some gum at the same time.
Can I add to that a little bit? I think that Wade is saying something, though, that's really important and really grounded in knowing our history. I think one of the things that I've learned in the process of earning the doctorate is the history of how we got to where we are in education. And when you look at when education administration, right, began to emerge, you've got Elwood Cubberley, who's kind of the father of education administration in America. And he was looking at business models of regimentation, of like standardization. And he actually grounded his stuff in social Darwinism. And he centered himself as the elite, right? And everything else was in comparison to him, and built systems that centered his point of view and made everyone other and had to center it. Edward Thorndike comes up behind him and goes, hey, we should measure that. And if it exists, it should be measured. And so we begin to measure these things that are based on business models, and we lose the humanity that was the foundation of teaching. We lose the relationship that's the foundation of teaching. And what we want to do is we want to flip the paradigm. Right now, we treasure what we measure. Important. What we need to do is measure what we treasure. The question is, that's gonna be harder. That means that we're gonna have to start valuing things that maybe are not a number. For example, what is the language a teacher uses to address the children? What is the language that the students use to describe the teacher? What is the language the teacher uses to describe the administrator? What is the language that the administrator uses to talk to the teacher? How much talk time does everyone get? Is there joy? What does it look like? What does it sound like? Is there curiosity? What does it look like? What does it sound like? Because I'll tell you what, ever since I left school, there has not been one test score that has mattered in my life. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't matter, and I want to be very clear on that. We have to have some way to know if what we're doing is helping and working, but it can't just be one thing. Because I'll tell you what, how do you know that I love my wife? Is there a test for that? How do you know that I'm good at what I do right now as a central office administrator? What is the data point that you're using to measure my effectiveness? And so I think we have to ask ourselves very different questions. And here's what I would love. I love the numbers. I think the numbers are important. I would love for the number not to be the end of the conversation. I would love the number to elicit the questions that lead to the conversation. So if we see a disparity, if we see an achievement report, what questions does that raise for you? And then how do I get that information? That's the information that I think is going to help me to shift practice.
That's powerful stuff. And particularly, I see that it's resonating with a lot of people when you said measure what we treasure. Yeah, that's strong stuff. You know, you had a part two, way, which I want to put up here. I wrote on here line number 2. No matter what goes wrong, it's the teacher's fault. Those who do better when kids do worse have been parroting and promoting these since the 80s. What are you telling us?
Yeah, I want to be sure I want to be sure to say, I'm not here to represent 3.5 million classroom teachers in the country. And this is a big one to start on because I'm using the word lie. And I know that's strong language. And I'm not calling people liars when I say these things. I'm just saying these things aren't true.
Yeah.
And I hope that everyone here assumes good intentions because I have good intentions when I raise these points. I mean, when I talk about the lie that no matter what goes wrong, it's the teacher's fault, I think of this. And I want everybody to think about this in the context of their professional work. But I also want you to think about this in the context of your personal life. And I want you to think about this in the context of both giving and receiving. The most dangerous message, I believe, that one human being can send to another human being is, no matter what you do, it will never be good enough. That is the most dangerous thing you can say to another human being. And many of us can think of times in our anecdotal personal lives when we've either received, or if we're brave enough to think about it, given that message. Sometimes we don't mean to. I mean, are we ever hearing that message in school? Are we ever giving that message in school? Are we ever accidentally giving that message in school? Which, by the way, is the same thing as giving that message. Because school leaders must ensure, and teachers must ensure, but school leaders today must ensure that their teachers and their students never hear those words, either directly or indirectly. Because no matter what you do, it will never be good enough, will damage your heart and your mind.
Yeah, I believe that wholeheartedly. That would be educational malpractice to utter those words to anybody. Good stuff. Let me go to you, Nader. You said today's students are more culturally astute and racially conscious than our teacher preparation programs have equipped us. Before you go, let me just set this up real quick. Hey, audience out there, fam out there, you got a teacher in the building, and this teacher has that cultural, racial understanding, astuteness, if you will, has that consciousness, if you will, and but sees that the professional learning that we're receiving may not necessarily match up with it. So hence there's a concern. But the question becomes, how do I approach administration without consequences coming my way? right? Let me hand it over to you, Nader.
I think that's spot on. I think the way I want to frame it is that, we're products of the system we're trying to change. And that system was built, right, on some foundations. And Dr. Beverly Daniel Tatum, the one who wrote, Why Do All the Black Kids Sit Together in the Cafeteria, talks about how we inhale smog, right? And even if we're not intentionally trying to inhale it and we internalize messages about kids and about ourselves and about cultures. I mean, I talked about trying to erase myself, and I was an adult because the only representations that I saw of people that looked like me were that they were a threat. And so whenever I walked into a room, I always felt like it was my job to make people comfortable. Now, I don't know that I had consciously thought that through. So then how does that affect how I show up in my classroom? Well, our kids are coming into our classroom with social media, having read, with messages all over that have made them much more racially conscious and much more culturally aware. And I think what I'm excited about is I see a greater pride, right, of kids bringing in that consciousness into the classroom with the expectation that it's not just acknowledged, but that the assets are celebrated. Now, I don't know if those are the words they would use, but I don't know the kids are embarrassed to show up as they are in the way that maybe we were, or in the way that I was. I'm not going to superimpose that on everybody. And so I don't know that their goal is assimilation, which I think was the design of education based on Elwood, Kepperly, and Thorndike. I think their goal is unique contribution. My education program, which was a phenomenal one, did not prepare me for that kid. I took one course that taught me a little bit about culture and about who not to pat on the head because culturally that was wrong, and who to put in groups because that was more culturally maybe responsive. But culture is more than just race, and race informs a lot of things in America. And so when we look at how we as a system, education system, have been responding to that, a lot of times it's this workshop approach, right? Like we spray and pray, right? We spray all the information out and then we pray that some of it sticks. And then 2 days later, we go in and we make sure that it's there. Like, I got to observe this. Well, we're fundamentally shifting 400 years of design. And it's going to take a long time to undesign it. And it's going to take collaboration, and it's going to take multiple touch points, right? It's not just a one-time event. And then you go back and now you got your 3 strategies for how to teach Middle Eastern kids, your 2 strategies for what to do for Asian students, and what to do for Black students. I mean, it's not how it works. And so what we're hearing from our teachers, what I would want as a teacher, is an ongoing job embedded, coaching focused growth model toward culturally relevant teaching, anchored in the great work of the scholars of color that we have in this country, from Dr. Gloria Ladson-Billings to Geneva Gay to Samuel. I mean, there's a lot to draw on. It's not like there's an embarrassment of riches that we can draw on to do right by our students. And I think we just need to stick with it long enough to see the results.
So help me, Nader. I promise you, I don't know who it is, but I know they're on this call right now. If they're not on with us live, they'll see the video later. There's someone sitting here saying amen to you, saying, I'm with you, I'm rocking with you.
Mm-hmm.
But when I go back to that school,
Mm-hmm.
that's not the culture that I'm walking back
Mm-hmm.
into. That's not the climate that I'm walking back into. So that person saying, hey, Dr. Twal, soon to be, right? Nader, help me.
Yeah.
How do I approach my administration to get them to understand what you just said?
I think a lot about, if people don't understand what we're saying, or if what we're saying doesn't land, then we need to say it in a way that they understand it. So what spoke in my context was results. So I knew that what was not working. And so when that, you had read in the bio about the literacy workshop class,
Yeah.
I couldn't conceive that 9th graders were coming into high school not knowing how to read. I could not conceive how we had failed them for 9 years and that they were coming in anywhere from the 3rd to 5th grade reading level. How did we do that? And I don't think that anyone intentionally does that. I don't think any teacher goes in and thinks, hey, I'm going to do intentional harm to kids. And if they do, I hope that that's a difficult conversation that someone needs to have with them. I really believe that people want to do right by kids. And so when they get to me in 9th grade and they don't know how to read, well, I need to do something about it. So my colleagues and I came up with a curriculum that was culturally responsive, that was anchored in the research. No one taught us. We had to go learn it. There was no curriculum. So we sought it out because we saw the need. We can't wait for someone to come to us with the information. If we see the need, and I think, Wade, I want to build on what you were saying. It may not be my fault that they came to me this way, but it is my responsibility to do something about it.
Mm.
Right? So I'm not going to be able to fix 9 years worth of ills, but I can do something. And every day that you are with me, I'm responsible for that time. And so we developed a curriculum where our students grew 3 grade levels in 1 year. So we were still below basic, but the kids made 3 years of gains in 1 year. Our school growth was 9 points, I think was the goal that year. Our kids grew 81 points. So they grew 9 times the growth of the school, but they were still not at grade level. But I think results will speak.
Yeah.
And so I think when you go back to your school site and you're in an environment that is hostile to this kind of change, you have to demonstrate success with the population that is the furthest from justice, that is the furthest from results. Who in the pattern of your school has been the least served? And then how can you produce the results that show the counter narrative? Because that's when people begin to ask questions. And see, and I'm going to say this, Baruti, because this is actually where a lot of my dissertation lies. I love Tupac, and Tupac has that whole concrete, rose growing out of concrete.
Yeah.
We got to get away from that, not from Tupac. He was brilliant. But from this idea that, like, where are the roses? Let's go study the death out of them. Let's resource it so more roses can grow in the concrete. My question is, if we're trying to grow roses, why are we doing it in concrete? We're the concrete. Why are we studying the exception? If the expectation is that we have a field of flowers, we need to look at what is the system, what is the soil that we're trying to grow this stuff in. So yes, we need outliers to know that it's possible. But once we see what the outlier is, we need to ask what system or school conditions exist that made that an outlier instead of the norm. That's what needs to shift.
Mm.
Baruti,
No
can I
problem.
add one thing as to this question of how do you go speak to somebody about this?
Yeah.
Because that's what you're asking. How does a teacher go speak to an administrator? And it can work the other way around. How does a school leader come speak to a teacher? This to me gets down to relationships and rapport, and how relationships and rapport work.
Mhm.
And we have to remind ourselves that in a relationship, and especially in a relationship with someone else who may not desire a positive relationship with you. And by the way, the best teachers in the world are experts at building and maintaining relationships and rapport with other people, especially including those who don't want a relationship with them. We have to remember that one deposit doesn't equal one withdrawal.
Mm.
All right. So in a relationship, you can't
Mhm.
say something nice and then say something in the other direction and expect them to balance out. Right. You're not very pretty, but you really are smart. We're not back where we started after somebody says that sentence. So what educators and others have to remember is that you have got to constantly be making deposits into these relationships and into this rapport, so that in the event that you need to make a withdrawal in the form of some kind of conflict or confrontation, or just simply in the form of a courageous conversation, a difficult conversation, that there is some capital there. You have a balance in that account that you can go withdraw from. And if you are not going to work to make those daily, regular, applied and ongoing deposits into these accounts that you share with other people, these relationships, there won't be anything for you to withdraw when you need to.
Got to make those deposits
Mhm.
to these relationships. And as you said, and Sean, my man Sean, Dr. Woodley said, as you said, I deposit, a deposit doesn't equal one deposit doesn't equal one withdrawal.
Mhm.
Let's go. Let's go. We got a lot to talk about here. Wade, when I was reading these, this one resonated for me, particularly as a school leader, where you said, school leaders, what are you doing to identify and keep your irreplaceables? Man, there's a part of me that wants to go ahead and preach that sermon, but this is not my show. This is Whitehead Nader today. So what are you saying here?
Well, I love being around school leaders, and I often hear them talking to each other about how many openings they have in their building. They'll say something like, how many positions do you have this spring? And one person says 5 and the other person says 13. And it's just automatically assumed that you'd rather be the person with 5. And school districts do this too. They'll say this year, attention public, this year we only turned over, 11% of our teachers. But 4 years ago, it was 23%. And everybody thinks that's great. My question is, who's leaving? Who's leaving? A school or a district or any company or organization that turns over its top 10% of highest performing associates or colleagues is in trouble. And one that turns over 30 or 35% of its lowest performing is on the move. So my question is, what are you doing to find your irreplaceables? The people in your organization, in this case, a school, who, if they left, would take with them something that could not be replaced, no matter who you interviewed or hired. The people that would take something that affects climate and culture and teaching and learning and teaching across the organization that you couldn't find somebody else to do. And what are you doing to keep them? And I have a secret to share. The way you keep them is to go to them and say, what would it take to keep you here? What would it take to keep you here? You are irreplaceable here. By the way, I like saying this to my students. You are irreplaceable here. No one else can do what you do. No one thinks what you think. What would it take for me to keep you engaged and present and active in this space? But if you say that to an irreplaceable, they'll give you a response. They'll say, we can predict some of the things they would say, and some of them maybe we can't. But the point is that you asked. And there is research out there. You can Google irreplaceables that tells us that if you ask an irreplaceable, what would it take for you to stay? Just the act of having the conversation makes them more likely to stay.
Absolutely. Wow. School leader, what are you doing to identify and keep your irreplaceables? I feel like you nailed it. I'm asked the question, what do I have to do to keep you here? And I can remember those conversations when someone was, it wasn't so much that they were leaving because they wanted to leave me. They were leaving because they were going to another state or something.
Yeah.
But I'm still asking, like, do you really have to go now? And it's the same thing. Certain kids that I just bonded with more, they were tucked under the wing and, they're mine. And now you got to leave. And I'm begging parent, can you stay? Understanding the reasons why they had to leave, but I still wanted them with me. But it boiled down to at least having the conversation. Before I move, Nader, did you want to jump in on any of that, or you good?
Yeah, I just want to say, I think that the way that Wade frames things is just brilliant. And here's why it's brilliant is the message that's beat into our heads is that everyone's replaceable. So what he's doing right now is foundational to any kind of justice work, which is the power of the counter narrative. Right? The counter narrative is the foundation of all justice work because there's a dominant narrative that we all inhale, there's smog that we all breathe, and we internalize these messages that we never question, which is that if I don't do a great job, I'm replaceable. Everyone's replaceable. And the machine, like we talked about earlier, right? Like you're a cog, take it out, put in a new cog. It might take a while to grease up and work smoothly, but everyone's replaceable. So to reframe it and begin to treat people like irreplaceables, guess what? They do what students do. They rise to the occasion. And when you ask that question, they become accountable to that title. So when I call you an irreplaceable, you begin to reflect on the fact that I am irreplaceable. My contribution is unique and you rise to that call. Now you don't throw it around like water so that it cheapens it, right? It's not, it's not something that you want to just kind of hand out so that it doesn't mean anything. But I think that there's wisdom in this counter narrative. And I think there's wisdom in amplifying the counter narrative. That's all I would add.
Yeah. I'm thinking about this from an administrative standpoint as well. And I remember when I left my district to go to another district, and I got a call from the mayor. I got a call from the board president, and they asked me essentially the same question. But I was already ready to make that transition to a new beginning. I just needed a new beginning at the time, but at least it made me feel like I'm wanted here. I'm needed here, that a mayor would call me and ask me to stay, right? I guess I was looked upon as an irreplaceable. in his eyes, for him to make a phone call to a principal to not go to another city, but to stay here with us. Right.
And Rudy, what I'm saying is, and you were and are irreplaceable.
Mhm.
But you know, what I'm suggesting in addition to that is they should have been asking you that question before you told him you were leaving. And they should have been asking you that question before you were recognized with the
Mhm.
Milken Award or with any other. They should have been scanning constantly for who are the people that if they left would take with them something we could never find.
Yeah.
And that was you. But by the time they asked you the question, you had visioned something else for yourself. And by the way, sometimes the answer is there's nothing you can do.
Right.
Yeah. That's
But
right.
I'm saying it gives us a fighting chance.
Yeah.
But I want to actually add to this a little bit, which is that, I mean, and this is something that I've come to probably in the last 2 or 3 years, but I've also come to the realization that sometimes we can't wait for someone else to acknowledge the fact that we are irreplaceable. I know that I am irreplaceable, and I hope that you see it one day. But in my classroom, I'm going to show up every day as if I am the most important factor in their learning, and I am going to teach as if this is the lesson to end all lessons, and I'm going to show up every day as irreplaceable, and I believe that one day you will notice. And if you don't, I am so sorry, but the kids, the community, our teachers cannot wait for you to see me that way, because I'm going to show up that way. And I hope one day you have the clear eyes to see it. But I think that is something that we also need to be thinking about, is what does it look like for me to be irreplaceable, and not wait for someone to tell me. And actually, this is funny. I'm going to get a little personal here, but I was the last of my friend group to get married. And so my friends were always looking at me like, Nader, what is it that you want in a woman? And so I would just, I would share my list. And then someone said to me, are you the man that would attract that woman? Why don't you spend your time focused on becoming the person that would draw her attention? And that frame really shifted me. Instead of looking outside myself for all the things that I wanted, I started looking within myself about how do I become the person that deserves that. And so I think when we begin to think of ourselves as irreplaceable, what would make me an irreplaceable asset to this classroom, to this school, to this district, to this state, to this country, to this world? And I live into that, mistakes and all. Even when you fail, you're going to fail forward, and you're going to get closer to something great.
Man, you got me thinking all sorts of things. And I know we still have items on the agenda, but I'm thinking about, as I'm listening to the conversation, not only being a part of it, but this word confidence keeps popping up into my head, and particularly with what you said about yourself, Nader. And see, when I reflect back on my days as a classroom teacher, certainly I never used the word irreplaceable, but I knew I knew I was irreplaceable. I knew that they couldn't bring somebody in there and do the things that I was doing, because again, like as you said, Wade, everything I was doing wasn't measurable. In fact, I would dare say most things I was doing wasn't measurable. You can't quantify the things that we were doing for those young people. And some of those young people watch this platform, and so we're talking about back in the 90s, and they tune in on Saturday mornings, right? So it speaks volumes. As a principal, I felt the same way. When someone calls me to speak, and they say in the email, we're looking at various different speakers, and you're one of the names that popped up, I tell them in the email, you need not look anymore. Right, I'm your guy, and particularly, they call me for a lot of convocation keynotes, right, back to school key. I'm your guy, right? I'm gonna fire them up, I'm gonna inspire them, but I'm gonna bring information at the same time, right? And I would say 100% of the time they say, listen, we'll send you a contract, right? So it's that a fam out there, it's that confidence, not cockiness, not egotistical.
That's right.
It's confidence in yourself. And that matters. How are you going to perform at these levels if you don't bring that level of confidence in your ability to do so? Let me move on, because we could turn each of these into a whole session. Nader, this is another one. This one, like I said about Wade's prior, this one I looked at it as that principle, and I said, this is speaking to me.
Mm-hmm.
He said, as the site leaders, we need today. Let me start over. The site leaders we need today cannot just be focused on master schedules, budgets, hiring, and supervision, but also have to be well-developed, transformative leaders. And then you went on. Holla.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I
said holla, right?
Sorry. I was thinking about how to bridge from that, because honestly, right now, when you think about the students we have, all those operational things matter. They do. They matter a lot. And they need to happen for a school to function. But they're not why kids go to school. Right? So they're not why teachers show up to work. They're things that make things work, and they're important. But the people that we need today are prophetic. They see a future that does not yet exist for kids who are showing up today with the hope that education is going to open the door for them. Right? And even if they don't know that that's going to open the door for them, we have to inspire that in them, because education may have done them wrong thus far. These are leaders who have to have the moral courage to make a decision that may not be popular, but brings those furthest from justice closer to the center. And if we in the classroom are going to be doing this brave work, right, of looking at kids who have been intentionally marginalized and really centering their needs in service to all kids, then we need someone to stand in front of us when the hits come and behind us when we begin to lose kind of the steam. And so going back to what Wade said, we need that tailwind to carry us, but we also need a shield, right? We need someone who's willing to advocate for us and with us when we're taking these brave steps forward to do better by the kids that we have intentionally and over time accumulated neglect, created the outcomes we have. Systems are designed to have the outcomes they have. When achievement gaps, which interesting, gap between what, right? But when achievement gaps persist, that's a pattern. A pattern happens when something is designed to have that outcome. And so if we're going to do something different, then we need to do something different. And that means that we're going to probably rock the boat a little bit. So we need someone in front of us and behind us as we move the work forward for the people that haven't been traditionally served by our system. I really feel strongly about this.
Yeah. Go ahead, Wade.
Yeah, I see people commenting they're going to rewatch this, and so will I. I mean, this is coming strong and resonating, and thank you.
Yeah.
I noticed some time ago that classroom teachers are exceptionally good at doing the work they're asked to do. If we were asked them to raise test scores, they generally do it. If we ask them to raise graduation rates, they generally do it. These kinds of things. And when we give a focus for the year, they will reach for that. I mean, classroom teachers are really good at doing the things they're asked to do. My question is, are we asking them to do the right work? Let's ask them to do the right work. And now we're asking the same question of school leaders. You're talking about the things that school leaders spend their time on. And school leaders are very good at doing those things. But is that the work we should be asking them to do? Now, that's one question for one time, right? But the reality is that we'll all be back in our schools on Monday, and all of us are going to be asked to do the work we're asked to do. And we can have some esoteric conversation about it. But at 9 a.m. on Monday, it's about where we are and what we're being asked to do. So I actually have a tip for the school leaders on the broadcast and all the other educators that are here. There are 3 things that I notice that the most effective educators do. And they are this: they dream big, they act small, and they pivot quickly.
Brilliant.
They dream big, they act small, and they pivot quickly. And part of this conversation is about dreaming big, like rethinking. Did we just flex back to February of 2020 after the pandemic, or are we pushing forward? Which one of those is it? That's dream big. But act small is when we're in our roles in our schools, there are certain things in front of us that we need to take care of. Hopefully the tailwind. But the pivot quickly is the one that school leaders really, really have to gain command of, because they've got to flex from doing all of these things that we're talking about that really push people forward, and things like master schedules and faculty meeting agendas and dealing with standards and curriculum and the results of assessments. And by the way, all of those things that I just mentioned, those are moral documents with moral outcomes. So I don't think they're unimportant, but pivoting quickly, dream big, act small, pivot quickly. Pivot quickly really becomes the separator for a school leader, I believe. Also for a classroom teacher, but we've got leaders in the house today.
You know, let's stay there. And I see that, you know, that resonated with folks. So I want to stay there for a minute. Dream big, act small, pivot quickly. So I'm thinking about that leader, and it's summer break. So well, it's not break for the leaders, just summer, right? Just students are not there. But I got these big dreams for the forthcoming year. So I'm ready. I'm losing sleep. I'm preparing mentally. I'm preparing as far as reaching out to folks I can reach out to. I'm getting myself ready for opening day. I'm dreaming big. I see it. I can envision where we're going. But then reality sets in when the students return. Instruction begins. And I ask the fam out here right now, when reality sets in and you're dealing with the challenges and obstacles that you deal with on a regular basis, going to using Wade's words, are you able to sustain the big dream that you had when no one was in the building? Because that's the point that he's making. Are you able to sustain it by the end of month 1, the end of month 2? Now that reality set in, now that students have underperformed, now that some students have engaged in behaviors which are undesirable, now that a parent came in and told you off, if not cussed you out, right? Now that there's pressure coming from central office, from your supervisor or even the superintendent, are you able to sustain the big dream is the question. And I'll answer the question. You must. You must. Because if you don't, then let's go to the second part, right? You will begin to act small. See, so you lost that dream, and now you got some little just you're just working now. In terms of you walking in your passion, walking in your purpose. Now you're just working, right? And you're acting small in the process. And therefore, I'm just trying to interpret what you said, Wade. You're making these small pivots throughout the course of a day, a week, a month, when the plan with the big dream, you were going to go like this, straight ahead. And now you're going boom, 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 boom. You're just pivoting and pivoting and pivoting because you allowed circumstances to compromise your big dream. Oh man, did I get that halfway right, man?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, man. That matters, man. I wrote that one down too, Wade, because I got to keep that, man.
Wade, there's a recommendation that you write a book, and that's the title of your book. I was like, that's a hashtag. It's a book. It's a T-shirt. It's all kinds of stuff.
It's all kinds of stuff. Yeah. Now that's dream big. Many of us, we dream big, but act small and pivot quickly. Yeah. Let's go, y'all. We still got a lot on this agenda. And we're actually at where are we at? We at Wade or we at Nader?
Wade. You're at Wade.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, I got caught up in the conversation. I stopped checking off. Wade, this was a big one, and you said in your note to me, you said this one might be a little uncomfortable. So let's look at it. School leaders, do you recognize and leverage the biggest difference between your classroom teachers and you? Holla.
Yeah, My fear is that anybody would take anything I'm saying the wrong way today. And I hope that doesn't happen. Good intentions here.
Yeah.
And I say that in advance of this because there is a big difference between classroom teachers and most of their administrators. And that difference is that their administrators were once classroom teachers, but decided, for whatever reason, to step away. And the classroom teachers themselves have not made that decision. Now, I'm going to talk for just a moment about why this is important, but I do want to say, and I'll probably repeat this, that this difference is rarely on the minds of the school leaders with whom I speak, but it's often on the minds of the classroom teachers that I know. So this difference exists, but it's not on the minds of the school leaders much of the time, and it is on the minds of the classroom teachers. By the way, I am not suggesting that people shouldn't step away from classroom teaching to advance in this profession. After all, there are people that I want in leadership, people that we need in leadership, and advancement in this profession, which includes more responsibility, more impact, bigger decisions, increased compensation, requires, for the most part, that you step away from teaching. That's why I want to suggest that if we wish to keep our best teachers, our irreplaceables, in the classroom where they belong, we must innovate ways for them to advance in this profession without leaving the classroom.
Yeah.
And, sometimes we can come back to that if you want to, but sometimes I notice that this difference between people who stepped away and people who didn't comes out when we start thinking and talking about our core customer. You go into most industries and you ask, who is your core customer? I've been fortunate to do leadership training outside the education ecosystem. And if you go into a corporation, a nonprofit, an organization that cannot answer the question, who is your core customer? That's an organization in trouble.
Yeah.
But if you ask people in education that question, you get all sorts of different answers. But by and large, a classroom teacher will answer that their core customer is the learner's family, and the learner's community.
Yeah.
Often people who aren't in the classroom have other answers to that. Maybe it's the school board. Maybe it's the legislature. Maybe it's the superintendent. Maybe it's your city council, your board of representatives. Maybe it's your selectmen in your town. It could be your county, your state. Some people might say the U.S. Department of Education. But by and large, this difference between people who have left and people who stayed, and by the way, people who have left didn't leave for the wrong reasons. That's not what I'm suggesting. They're doing important work. That's not what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting that there is a difference here that is on the minds many times of classroom teachers when they are spoken to or at, that isn't always on the minds of the school leaders.
Anything you want to add, Nader?
No, just preach.
Yeah, preach.
I mean, if we recognize this as a difference, if we recognize it, and by the way, I would encourage school leaders to articulate to their teachers why they decided to leave.
Mm-hmm.
It helps the teacher understand your work. It helps the teacher understand that there is gravity there too, that pulls you into that.
Yeah.
But so often school leaders aren't articulating that. They're not having any conversation about it. And the reason is it's not on their mind. But the reason there's a need for that is because it often is on the teacher's mind.
Mm-hmm.
Not as a resentment. That's not what I'm saying, but as a difference.
Mm-hmm.
So once you engage that conversation, you begin to engage each other as experts in different roles, as different people with something different to offer, as voices to be heard and appreciated.
You know, that point is key too. When you said engaging one another as experts, that's a whole different dynamic when I'm leader, and that's how I view the staff that works with me, right? As opposed to me looking at myself as this administrative role and I'm almost superior to the teachers that I work with. When I can see you as expert and accept and embrace, as I've said on this platform numerous times, that I am not the smartest, the brightest, the most intelligent person in the room. that there are brilliant people on this staff who know things that I do not know, then the question is, how am I utilizing the talent, the human capital, the human resources that are on my staff, as
That's
opposed to me thinking I'm so smart that I have to do everything. See, there are aspiring administrators on every staff. We just don't always know about them. So if I've got them on my staff, how am I utilizing them beyond what they do in the classroom? Then I got other people on staff who are just committed and want to do more than teaching and learning. How am I utilizing their talent? Right? So if I see you in that light as my equal, as opposed to my subordinate, then that changes the whole dynamic of the relationship in terms of how we approach one another, right? But it also empowers that teacher to have the confidence to approach me in terms of some of those uncomfortable conversations because of the way I'm treated and respected by the leadership in the building. So it matters. Go ahead.
I want to encourage everybody who watches this on the replay to rewind about 100 seconds. Listen to what Principal Kafele just said, but instead of administrator, say teacher, and instead of teacher, say student. Because here's what you just said. You said that when a teacher approaches students as experts, when a teacher approaches students as people who have something to offer, the students engage the teacher on a different level. They begin to see the teacher as someone they can approach with a difficult conversation or a legitimate challenge or just a good point. And as the teacher looks to expand the role of the students in that classroom ecosystem, the students begin to build out a vision for their own success. They begin to take ownership of the goals and the hopes and wishes and dreams that that teacher has for them, and it becomes a shared endeavor.
Yeah.
All I did was repeat what you said, and we see this happen in the best classrooms, but we can scale that so that it happens in the relationship between teachers and school leaders in the best schools.
That's right.
But that goes back to something you said earlier, though, Wade, is do we see our students as irreplaceable? Do we see that infinite potential in them? And do we believe that it's our responsibility to cultivate that? You know, that's the work of Dr. Goldie Muhammad, right? Cultivating Genius is the title of her book, which is that if we really believe that there is a genius in every single one of our students, then we take responsibility for mining that genius out of them, for cultivating the soil and tending them so that whatever fruit they bear, this one might be an apple, that one might be an orange, that one might be a tomato, but everyone's got some fruit to bear, and we got to cultivate that in them. I think that's brilliant. And I wonder what would happen if we saw our students as irreplaceable.
And we have to ask ourselves, is that the work we're asking ourselves to do? Is that the work we're asking our school leaders and the teachers who work with them and are supported by them to take on?
And I think that we also need to think about the power of language, because up until this conversation, I've accepted the term, why did you leave the classroom? I never left the classroom. My heart's still there. My body did. My classroom just changed. And so I think some people do leave the classroom. I don't ever feel like I have left the classroom. I feel like my heart's still there, although my body isn't, and my scope has changed and my classroom has shifted. I think I have to think about that a little bit more, because I do think that that will affect the way that we show up in spaces. I'm now in spaces where systems get to make decisions. And if I remind myself where my heart lies, that I'm going to make decisions differently, recognizing that I'm not in the classroom. And that goes kind of to one of the points I was going to make a little bit later, Baruti, which is that, you know, if teachers inherited the system that they have, right, and it's been created to have the outcomes it has. And so we need to redesign the system. And instead of redesigning the system for folks, let's redesign the system with folks who have proximity to the issue. Let's bring our students, our caretakers, and our teachers into the solution. They have some expertise and some lived experience that is probably really valuable to us. They're living it. That's a curriculum. They're living it every single day in a way that I'm not. And my proximity to them in heart allows them in mind, in spirit, and in action to inform the decisions that I make at a systemic scale. I think there's something there that we need to mine a little bit more over time.
I love it. I love it. You know, and on a side note, you referenced Dr. Muhammad. She was on here in November.
Love her.
Yeah. Great stuff. Great stuff. Let me go to you, Nader. Teachers have inherited an education system, and this is where you were, an
Yep.
education system that has the outcomes it has because it has been designed to have these outcomes.
Yep.
Go ahead.
I mean, it is what it is. It's exactly what it says. No secrets there. Go look at the data. The data is on purpose. That's the system we've designed. Now, we've inherited that system, so we have a responsibility to do something about it. Persistent gaps, however you want to define them, persistent disparities are there because that's what the system was designed to do. And so who are the people closest to the solution, and how do we bring them into that change? And then how do we equip them without a spray and pray to actually enact that change? And how do we allow for the space for, I think you said act small, Wade. I talk about safe to fail experimentation. It comes from the language of design thinking and the language of liberatory design, which is that as we design for liberation, as we design for change, we have to have spaces where we can try things that may not work, but don't do harm, right? Because we have to do different if we want different outcomes. We're not going to be able to sustain the system we have and watch achievement go up for students that have been traditionally underserved because we have the system we have because it's been designed that way. And so I just think that we have to be honest with ourselves, and whether or not it's my fault, as I said earlier, I didn't pick the education system the way it is, but it is my responsibility because I choose to stay in the system. So I have to do something from where I sit and where I stand, and it may not happen tomorrow, but I can't just accept it as the status quo. And this is just how it has to be, because the reality is that my kids can't wait for that.
That's right. That's right. Good stuff. I'm gonna keep moving because of time. Here we go. I'm back at you, Wade. Our finest classroom teachers don't want another dollar to implement a system or program they don't believe in. And that was all I put on the screen. But let me read the rest of this. Is another line. They desire and deserve freedom to practice their craft, and yes, accountability for outcomes they can control. So on you.
Yeah, I guess for me, this boils down to a question for school leaders. And again, if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice on this question. When you make decisions about school leadership, what assumptions are you making about teacher quality? That's really the question. When you make decisions in your school leadership, what assumptions are you making about teacher quality? Because you will make fundamentally different decisions if you assume low teacher quality than you will make if you assume high or expert teacher quality. And you will be assuming one or the other. You know, when this pandemic hit March of 2020, the first things out the window in most places were grades and tests. I mean, in my district and many others in Virginia, we said, we just can't continue grading the way we have been during regular school. And they canceled state testing in many, many places across the country. That's really interesting to me because for just a bit, we were rethinking school. We were actually asking the question, what do we want school to be made of? And then we were designing a school experience around that within the many, many limitations that were pressed onto us. I mean, I want to ask school leaders, are you asking for a script? Like in your dream world, would you walk into my classroom and hear me starting a sentence, then dash out the door and down the hall into another classroom where you hear a teacher finishing that sentence? Because if that is, then you're assuming zero teacher quality. It's a script. I want to challenge that we often think that people are motivated by things that they're not. The best teachers are motivated by student learning. And we should be aligning our other incentives and conversations around that motivation. Our best teachers deserve to be trusted, and they deserve to be held accountable or responsible for the things they say and things they do. They can only in the end control what they say and do. That's why the National Board certification process doesn't ask for student test scores. The National Board for Professional Teaching Standards has figured that you can evaluate how a teacher's doing based on how that teacher speaks to kids, the lessons that teacher is designing and delivering for kids, and really importantly, how that teacher responds to kids. And you can and should hold that teacher accountable for that teacher's decisions. I think actually the secret here, I'll just throw this in and then pass to Nader. Just a leadership tip. I think the secret here lies in the field of adaptive leadership. And school leaders out there, you should be engaging in your own learning and development in this field. This is something I've worked with school leaders on and leaders in other industries. Won't get into it now, but the field of adaptive leadership is really going to unlock how you give responsibility and freedom to amazing educators and hold them accountable and responsible for their results.
You know, I'm just processing everything you said, and I know, you know, I don't run away from it. Who I was as a teacher was very unorthodox, right? And one of the reasons was because I didn't go to school initially for education, so I wasn't quote unquote corrupted by that. Right. So I went to school for education after the fact, went through the alternate route and all that kind of thing. But I was unorthodox, but I had a principal who allowed me to be me, but held me accountable in terms of results. As a principal, I was hyper unorthodox, right? But had superintendents 3 out of 4, no, 2 out of 4, no, 3 out of 4. It said, be you, right? So, because I'm gonna get the results, but it's going to look a little different than say the next one. But allow me to just be me within my craft, hold me accountable, and I promise you, I'm going to deliver. And I think that's the premise of what you're saying. Let me bring it back to the screen in terms of our finest classroom teachers don't want another dollar to implement a system or program that they don't believe in. And then the added part, they desire and deserve freedom to practice their craft. And yes, accountability for outcomes they can control. So I needed that freedom. And quite frankly, Wade, as a presenter, there's a certain freedom that I need. I gotta be me, right? I can't be what you may expect me to be in terms of whatever a traditional speaker may look like, or how they speak, how they deliver, whatever it is. Let me be my authentic self as an educator, and then we'll let the chips fall where they may. Right? Am I hearing you correctly?
Yeah, and that's why when we bring you to the Teachers of Promise Institute, by the way, teachersofpromiseinstitute.com.
I'm gonna let you do the whole thing, so don't worry.
We ask you to come and speak. We ask you to come and work your magic. That's what the people who are asking you to help transform their school districts and learning sites are doing. I'm not handing you a speech and asking you to come read it.
Right.
Because I trust you. I believe in you. And so the question is this how we're treating our best teachers?
Yeah.
And we hold you accountable for what happens there, and we give you credit for what happens there. And if there's something that didn't go right, we'd talk to you about it, which there wouldn't be. But it would happen because that's how that works. And that's what you want because you're good at what you do. And so I'm just asking the question, is this how we're treating our best teachers in the classroom?
Yeah.
And how do we get there?
I love it. I love it. You know, fam out there, it's we're gonna be approaching 1 o'clock soon Eastern time. So I'm not gonna get to all the points I wanted to get to, but I think we gave you a lot. But I do have one more we get to, because I want to get my rapid fire in. I want them to tell you how to get in touch with them and all that kind of stuff. So I want to make sure we get that in. But let me go to Nader on this one. Where we at? Here we are. If Nader, you said if we believe that teachers are the greatest single indicator of student success, which I believe with every fiber of my being in the classroom, then we have to treat them like the professionals that they are.
Yeah.
What are you saying?
It's really just building on what Wade just said, which is that people that are there have an internal accountability to the kid, and they aren't motivated by the external accountability. External accountability may matter, but internal accountability matters more. So I'm not waiting for the event of a test, right, to show that I'm doing something. I'm taking every day as an opportunity to grow the children that are in front of me and to grow the staff that I serve. Now, the rest of that, the rest of that quote right there is that if we believe that teachers are the greatest single indicator of student success in the classroom, then we have to treat them like the professionals they are and shift from a command and control leadership style to a trust and inspire. And I think that comes from Covey, operating under the fundamental assumption that people enter this profession to do well and to serve kids. And when that isn't the case, then we need to ask questions and begin with an asset-minded approach instead of a deficit approach. So instead of assuming that there's something wrong with the person, we need to ask them, is there a resource gap? Is there a training gap? Is there something that we need to do to better support you to create these outcomes that you know you're capable of and that you deserve? Some people willfully show up and give you medium effort and get medium results. You know, that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
But I don't know that anyone enters the profession with that as their intent. So I think if we maintain an asset mentality toward the professionals that are in the classroom having the greatest impact, the questions we ask are different and the response we have is different.
Yeah. You know, Nader, although I just said what I said about time, I really want to get your response to that fifth one you gave me.
Yeah.
So let me stay with you.
Okay.
You said if we're going to really move the system,
Yep.
we in capital letters. Matter of fact, let me put it up here. Let me put it up here. Let's see where we at. Here we go. So if we are going to really move the system, we all have to own the system. But then you went on and said we are the district.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a site versus district system. The system is made up of people. So we need to own our responsibility for the change we want to see. We are not powerless to affect change.
Mm-hmm. I believe in my core. And when you look at language, when we speak in we have a different shared responsibility, from a nutrition services worker to a teacher to an office supervisor to the superintendent. The we mentality orients us differently in the work. Oftentimes, we speak in we's when we speak of success, but when there's failure, we speak of us and them. And I think what it does is it absolves us of responsibility of doing something, because now something happened to me, right? And I don't have a say. I can't control that. You may not be able to control that, but you can control this.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't have to define this.
Yeah.
So the way I show up is a choice I make. The work I do is a choice I make. The students I serve is a choice I make in terms of how I show up in that space, whether or not the conditions exist for me to succeed. Now, should the conditions shift? Absolutely. But it's not an impersonal system. We're a human-centered enterprise. And every single person in the system defines the system. And so it is not a site and district, classified, certificated staff. We are the system. We have a collective responsibility to shift the system in service to kids. And we have the power to do something within our reach. I may not be able to reach over the fence, but I can reach within the fence. You have to extend your reach from where you stand. So I really am a firm believer of lead from where you stand.
So let me ask you this question. I'm teacher on staff. Going back to, I've been saying this quite a few times now. I'm
Mm-hmm.
teacher on staff, and I'm rocking with you. There's already people on this thread saying they need a part 2. There are
Mm-hmm.
people on this thread saying they're going to watch this 2 and 3 times, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there are people rocking with the two of you since we came on. So my question is, that whole idea of we,
Mm-hmm.
school and district.
Mm-hmm.
I'm teacher.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. How do I bring that level of thinking to my school, to my administration, that it's not a us against them? Because the fact of the matter, because I do the work that I do, Nader, I see the us against them. I hear the us against them in the private conversations. Without having to wait for that leader that may never have that conversation, depending on the leader,
Mhm.
how do I go and approach the leader or whomever? What might that look like?
There's a lot of ways that it can look. Some of it is there are existing structures in some districts that allow for teacher voice to extend beyond the classroom. There are teacher advisories, there are committees, there are ways for you to participate in structures that extend your language and give you insight into how systems people are thinking, but also brings your voice to the table in a really robust way in a decision-making space. It's a space that's already designed for you to inform the decision. So I think you need to, first of all, maybe not assume that your district doesn't have those structures, but maybe go look for where those structures exist. If they do not exist, I would recommend that you find your posse, who are your people, and you start it. And it can be off hours for you, but use it as a gift to the district. What expertise do you have that you collectively can share with a district that is, honestly, we're public facing. So the teachers, we deal a lot with parents and we deal with the community, but the district is like this thing that people feel like they can hate, but that district is made up of people. So when I show up in a space and people don't know me from Adam, they've got feelings about what I represent. So I need the information you have to be well equipped to enter into that community with authority, with authenticity, and with credibility to speak on behalf of the profession. You are a gift to me, but you have to show up as a gift and not as an antagonist, right? So I need you with me like you need me with you so that we can work together to better serve the community. So I think, again, look for where there are opportunities for you to sit in a space that already exists, and where there isn't a space, create something.
There it is. There it is. Because I know definitively, Nader, that there are teachers that watch. Even though we're a leadership platform, teachers tell me, they say, "No, I tune in too because there are nuggets every week that are going to help me in the classroom, or I'm considering administration. So, but I don't know yet, so I watch. Whatever it is. So, yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Look, let's go to our rapid fire. I know you had that big one, Wade, which I didn't get to because I know there's a lot to unpack there with the whole democratic system and all that kind of. We're gonna do a part 2, and then we'll go right to it. Let's go to these rapid fire. I'm gonna start with Wade. We didn't talk about it off mic, but off camera. But they rapid fire, 1 sentence max or 1 word answer. But if you find you starting to insert commas and you're going too long, because these are right. So I'll go 10 with Wade, 10 Nader, and then the last one we both do. Here we go, Wade. Is education on the right path for underserved children in America right now?
Not yet.
Are you optimistic about the educational prospects for the masses of underserved students in America today?
Schools can be the first place in our society where the right thing happens, and we must be.
Can true equity occur in America's schools for Black, brown, and other underserved students?
We can be the first place in society where this is done right, and it must be us.
Does Wade Whitehead's work contribute to the progress we desperately need?
I pray that it has, and that it does, and that it might.
If you could do a reset on your life, would your line of work be different or the same?
Yes.
Why do you continue to do this work?
Because the best is yet to come.
What fires you up within the work that you do?
Connecting kids, the needs of my learners with the strengths, gifts, experiences, and perspectives of my learners so that they find their voice and so that it's heard maybe for the first time and maybe even by themselves for the first time.
What do you absolutely love about the work you do?
And I love that childhood is not preparation for an adventure, that it is the adventure.
Wow, like it. What do you dislike about the work that you do?
Hearing the answer because I said so, the least satisfying answer in the history of humankind.
And finally, what has been your greatest victory in this work thus far?
Advancing in the profession without leaving the classroom.
Wow. Nader, what was your greatest mistake in this work?
Assuming that I knew enough.
What has been your greatest challenge in this work?
Identifying a coalition to do the work together.
Who inspires you in this work?
My mother.
What are you reading right now? Book, article, blog, tweet, anything?
2 books, Dr. Jarvis Given's Fugitive Pedagogy and Linda Smith's Decolonizing Methodologies.
What book would you recommend for our viewers this afternoon?
Fugitive Pedagogy.
What do you want to accomplish that you haven't accomplished yet?
Justice in education, where the outcomes show that we did it.
Are you satisfied with where you are right now professionally?
No.
What could you say to a viewer out there who continues to face closed doors?
That maybe you're knocking on the wrong door.
Ooh. What could you say to a viewer out there who's lost their fire?
Oh, wow. That look for the ember when you don't have the fire and fan the ember until it becomes a flame.
Oh, you got deep on me, man.
Something's in there.
Yeah. And if Nader Twal was a word in a dictionary, what would be your definition?
Catalyst. Something that creates change between 2 things that don't connect, creates something stable and leaves no trace of itself.
And same question for Wade. If Wade Whitehead was a word in a dictionary, what would be your definition?
One who gets to dream his own dream, but who remarkably gets to be a part of the dreams of others too.
Y'all got deep on these, man. y'all got philosophical and deep. Good stuff, great stuff. Hey, let me say to y'all, I appreciate you. Hey, fam out there, those of you who are first timers, you wouldn't know this yet, but I'm gonna tell you now, fam, they understand the way we applaud our guests and the overall platform is to just give us your favorite emojis. Just put them on the screen, give us those emojis. That's the way we applaud the guests for the past 193 Saturdays. So give us those emojis if you felt that this resonated with you, if you felt it added value, if you felt it was something that you could take back to your school, if you felt it was just good stuff, whatever it is. And I see the emojis coming in, and they were actually coming in during the rapid fire, which that's what we do. And let me get my emoji, this big back here, and this is my Louisville Slugger, to say that you certainly hit it out the park. You went to the home plate. You hit a grand slam, three men on base or 3 people on base each time, and you hit a grand slam out the park. So that's a whole lot of runs. One day I'm gonna compute that so that I can tell you how many runs it is. But I mentally while I'm on live, right? So then they'd be talking about me, right? So man, this was great stuff. Great stuff. Hey Wade, how did they reach you and tell them that piece you sent me? Tell them everything.
Well, I'll be quick. Baruti Kafele, thank you.
Thank you.
You inspire all of us in our work and countless others, and many you will never meet.
Right.
And I just thank God for you. Everybody, we got great things going on at the Teachers of Promise Foundation and Institute. You can come to teachersofpromise.com or teachersofpromiseinstitute.com. We're basically looking to find and celebrate tomorrow's most amazing teachers in this nation, especially those from underrepresented and underserved communities. And if you'd like to join our universe, you can send me an email, Wade, W-A-D-E, at teachersofpromise.com. In other news, I've been fortunate to share more than 350 keynotes and workshops for educators around the world. I'm booking keynotes and professional learning workshops and leadership development for this year right now. These are keynotes centered on a celebration of teacher quality, school-based workshops on differentiated instruction, classroom culture, project-based learning. I have some adaptive workshops for school leaders, adaptive thinking and adaptive leadership workshops. And I have a parenting workshop and seminar that I do called Parent is a Verb that maybe we could talk about. You can find me at wadewhitehead.com or on Twitter at wadewhitehead. And look forward to hearing from you if you'd just like to connect. This is about building, just like Nader said, this is about building a network. Everybody has a network. It's just a question of which one. So let's continue to build a community that strives for excellence and maybe even occasionally reaches it as we seek to serve learners and their families and their communities.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Nader.
Just real simple. Find me on LinkedIn, Nader Twal. I'm also on Twitter, Nader Twal. And the best way to reach me personally is my first initial N, last name TWAL at mac.com. Or if you want to reach me at my professional email, it's ntwal@lbschools.net. But all my information's on LinkedIn, all the articles, all the good stuff, and you can see what interests you and ping me and we'll get a conversation going.
I love it. I appreciate y'all too. This was great. This was great. And I expected it to be great, and it was great. This was great information, and I love the comments that are still coming in and the emoji. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, fam, for being here. Let me close out. Let me do the rundown. You two brothers stay on, even when I go off, so we can talk off camera. Hey, folks, I'm glad you're here, fam. We going into week 194 next Saturday. I got more Milken heads coming on. We got Dr. We call her Dil. Her name is Dr. Dilhani Uswate, I believe is the way you pronounce her last name. Dr. Debrion Davis, Principal Jada Puglius, and Principal Megan Lefevers. These are all principals, actually. One of them, Dr. Dill, she's in central office now, but she was the principal for a long time. So we're going to have a good conversation about the principalship with a focus on the new principal. So that'll be next Saturday. All Milken heads joining me all month long. Next week, Facebook Live, Saturday morning, 10 o'clock, Sean Hurt, 10:30, Create and Educate with Dr. Sheikah Houston and Dr. Tammy Taylor, myself at 10:55, and then Sunday night, Unlock the Middle with Josh Tovar and Dean Packard. My books, I'm not going to put them on the screen. You know my books. If you don't, go to Amazon, put in Baruti Kafele, and you'll see them all, and get yourself a book. Visit principalkafele.com for all my additional resources. Subscribe to the AP and New Principals Academy YouTube channel. And I told you before, we're at like 19,900 something. It probably increased during the broadcast, but get me up to 20,000, y'all. And then the next goal will be 25,000 subscribers. So, and also, like I said earlier this morning, I started the shorts, man. So sometimes folks don't have time to listen to a whole video. So I'm giving the 60-second shorts. And let me tell you something. I'll say this real quick. Them shorts are not easy to make. So watch them because I put a lot of time in. The first one I did, I was sitting right here. 60 seconds. It took me 25 takes. Live, you don't care if you stutter, you stumble, you make a mistake. You just fix it. But when you're doing a recording, you want it to be perfect. My wife and my son was sitting over there like, you're not finished yet? Because they couldn't watch the television or nothing. I needed it silent in here. 25 takes for a 60-second video, man. Then I made 4 more. I said I wasn't going to do any more for another week. I made 4 more. So go to my YouTube channel, AP and New Principals Academy, and check out those shorts so that you can appreciate the work that went into making them, because it wasn't one take. Like and follow the AP and New Principals Academy Facebook page and get tomorrow's commentary, man. I write a commentary every Sunday morning and I post it not later than 10 o'clock. Sometimes I make it a blog and put it on my blog page, but it's still going to be there. And then lastly, your diet, y'all. Hey, man, you got to eat right. I know you. And do I slip sometime? Yeah, when I'm on the road, you slip up every now and then. But eat right, y'all. You want to live long, you got to eat right, but then you got to couple it with the exercise. You got to get that exercise in, right? I've been putting in all these miles, man. One of them shorts is on the treadmill, right? It's called Your Leadership Matters, but Your Health Matters More, right? So I did it on the treadmill. Check it out. AP and New Principals Academy YouTube channel. And then finally, those COVID-19 precautions and all the other viruses that are out there. Just take care of yourselves. Whatever you got to do, I'm not going to make recommendations. Just whatever you got to do it to keep you healthy, to keep you safe, to keep you alive, because that's where we are, right? Other than that, glad you're here. See you next Saturday for week 194. But until then, have a great week. Have an extraordinary week. Have your best week yet. Peace. Peace. Thumbs up. Cock that fist back. Count to 3. 1, 2, 3. Bam! That's it. I see y'all next week. Oh, and by the way, go. I was gonna say Bills and Dolphins. I don't know which way to go, y'all.
Buccaneers. Just go that way.
Please. Bills and Dolphins is the only game that matters this week. We'll see. I'm just hoping for a good one. I'll see y'all later.